How's it going, everybody? In this mini lecture video, we are going to be talking about argument and the rhetorical situation. So let us get started. Um, First and foremost, when we say argument, we generally are not talking about the kinds of, conflict arguments that you might have. Like, oh, I had an argument with my mom, or I had an argument with my boss or my sibling. And we generally tend to think of that in terms of disagreements, right? Our boss didn't pay us enough or didn't give us off the day that we requested, or, mom said, do your laundry before you go out, or I don't know, whatever. Instead, arguments here are assertions. These can be, and as we'll talk about momentarily, nearly anything. And nearly anything and everything that we do is an argument. It could be a statement of fact that could be trying to convince somebody to do something, trying to or to believe something, trying to persuade somebody to do something. Now let's get started. Why do we make arguments? Again, if arguments are basically everything, and for the record, we are speaking here about spoken arguments as well as written arguments as well as spoken arguments. Sometimes we are attempting to convince or inform somebody. And I think there's an interesting distinction to be made between convincing somebody and persuading somebody. I feel like we tend to use those two terms almost interchangeably, right? Like, oh, I want to convince you to do something, or I want to persuade you to do something. But really, if we really think about it, convincing somebody is much more along the lines of getting somebody to accept something as true, getting somebody to believe or think or agree with your line of thinking. That's to convince somebody. And so arguments to inform somebody are largely doing the same thing. You are trying to present new information, and your hope is that your audience is going to incorporate that new information into their lives, into their worldviews, and they're going to do something with it. Arguments to persuade, on the other hand, are really all about getting your audience to take some kind of action. It's not just about changing the way somebody thinks. It's about how do we get our audience up off the couch and up out into the world to go do something. I mean, I know we don't necessarily need people to get off the couch or into the world to do something. We may just be trying to convince us to, like, okay, hey, send an email to your senator, or call somebody, do something. Still, it involves taking action. Similarly, we also make arguments to make decisions. We very rarely make any kind of decision these days without consulting reviews first. Those reviews are, in a sense, arguments, right? They're telling us you should go see this movie, or you should probably not go to that new taco restaurant because it's not really that good. These are arguments that are designed to help us make decisions. So now that we've gotten why we make arguments, there's a theory called Stasses Theory that kind of helps us organize what kinds of arguments that we have, and it helps us by organizing them based on the types of issues that they're addressing. So this can be arguments based on, okay, did something happen? Are we trying to prove that something happened? Are we trying to prove that human action is the cause of climate change? What is its nature? What's it like? What are its constituent parts? These are the kinds of things that we could think about. What is its quality or cause? Is it a good film? Is it a good taco restaurant? Or what caused it? What series of events led to this state? What are the likely effects of this continuing to occur? And then finally, what actions should be taken? What do we need to do? Again, so this is taking those reasons for why we make arguments and just kind of further categorizing them, helping us understand these are the things that we want to keep in mind when we are planning a speech or when we are planning and drafting an essay or a letter or a blog post even. And these all contribute to what's called the rhetorical situation. Any and every time that we find ourselves in a position to deliver a message, that could be writing a letter or a paper or a newspaper op-ed or delivering a speech or creating a YouTube video, we find ourselves in a rhetorical situation. This situation, it basically just describes the relationship between all of the various factors that go into this communication situation. And so this really, I think, handy 4-part triangle looks kind of like the Triforce, if you're a Zelda fan like me, speaks to the rhetorical situation. We have our writers or our speakers. That's you. That's the deliverer of the message, right? We have our audience, our readers, our viewers, our listeners, who we envision presenting our argument to. And a lot of times we need to think about this before we start writing, before we start planning, because these shape we shape our arguments to an imagined audience, to who we think we're going to be, dealing with. Why would you want to do that, you might ask? I don't care who my audience is. Well, you want your argument to be accepted, right? We don't want to be booed off stage or flamed in the comments section. We want to have people accept our arguments. And if they don't accept our arguments, then at least respectfully disagree with us. Likely, though, we want to convince them. And so we have to understand who our audience is, who they, or what they value, and how best to appeal to them. And we do this in this third part. This is the text, the message. This is what we actually are conveying. This is the content of our essay. This is the content of our speech. And this is all delivered in the context or the media. How are we delivering this? Is it online? Is it being delivered via a video? Are you doing a Zoom call? Are you publishing it in a newspaper? Are you doing, how are you delivering this? It also matters the context. What kind of situation are you, if you're speaking, where are you talking? Is it at a private party and you're, delivering an address to a crowd introducing the guest of honor? Or are you speaking at that same person's funeral? That context is going to matter a lot because it's going to dramatically change the ways in which you are delivering that speech. What this all goes to show is that all 4 of these parts of the rhetorical situation matter a lot. Because if we change one thing, we're changing the whole argument. We're changing the whole message, the whole situation. We all bring, different writers are going to bring different sets of expertise, different opinions, different biases. And that's okay. what we need to do is we need to recognize that. We need to, just like we said earlier, recognize that different audiences are going to value different things. Different texts and different messages are going to be tailored by writers to audiences using different contexts and media. So it's going to shape all of these things. And these are all very deliberate choices. So this is just a very brief introduction. This is a good starting point, I think, to get into a deeper discussion of what is the rhetorical situation. But these are things to keep in mind whenever you get started planning a new document. Think about what situation am I entering into? Who am I? Who are my audience? Who are my audiences? Who am I writing for? Am I, what kind of speech, what kind of message am I preparing? And how and where and when and why am I going to be delivering it? And then lastly, this all goes for everybody. So when we are reading somebody else's writing, or we're listening to someone else speak, they also are a part of this rhetorical situation, just like you are. You may have gone from the writer or speaker, and now you might be part of the audience. So also something to keep in mind whenever you sit down to read or watch or listen. What are the other writers' expertises or experiences or biases or beliefs? How have they tried to cater to their audience? And their audience might not be you. How have they let their context shape their message? Thanks very much. I will see you all in the next video.